Engineer Jimo said he's just going to be handling the construction part. So we are going to be talking to you about the permits. So he advised that the permits should go first before the construction aspects. You're fine with
Okay.
that? Can I proceed, sir?
Of course, yeah, I'm good.
So the first question we're going to be asking is, what are the key permits and approvals needed before starting to build a house in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. My name is Town Planner Sahid Latif, and I work with Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority. Before you start any form of development, most of the key things permits you require is to obtain a building plan approval from the Lagos State Planning Permit Authority in any part of Lagos State. For you to do any permit, that's the what you need, a approval from town planning office, and you can actually obtain such from any of the zones. Our head office is at Aba Akijabi Way, GRA Ikeja, and you can actually get other district offices around Lagos, either in Lekki, Alimosho, Oshodi, Ikeja. So it depends on where the land is situated. So you can get the planning permit from any one of them.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. So you mean to say that they can get the key permits from these locations? You mentioned Oshodi, right?
Yeah, we have Lupeju, we have our office at Oshodi, we have Nikeja, we have at Alimosho, depending on the area, but the head office at Oba PW Way, that's the GRA in Ikeja, at Ikeja. So any location in Lagos, we all have district office there.
Next question. Can you walk us through the process of getting a building permit in Lagos, especially in Lagos? You know, with all the demolitions going on, so it's very important that you give us a step-by-step process in getting a building permit in Lagos. Can you do that, sir?
Sure. Yeah, the first thing you need to get in Lagos is the moment you have your land, or before you even get that land itself, you need to do your survey and get your coordinates. By the time you get your survey and your coordinates, probably you've checked your land whether it's okay. You understand me? That's you do your charting or you do your land information from surveyor general's office. First thing, you get your title document perfected or your survey, and you do a plan. If you don't have a title document, which is either a COO or a governor consent, you must confirm that your land is not on any form of acquisition. So if that is perfect, then you come up to our office with your architectural drawing that is cleared by or designed by a registered architect. You get your title documents, the COO you've gotten, your survey. If it's going to be more than one floor, that's ground and first, you do your structure with it. If it's only bungalow, you do only the architectural design. Then if it's going to be more than 3 floors, that's ground first and second, or more, you do your mechanical, electrical with it. And all the professionals must sign off on them. Then you bring those documents to our office, any of the office that requires that. And the moment we see that, we take your survey or your title document, we confirm whether it's free from any form of acquisition or either is on any drainage system or right of way or any improvement that is going to affect any form of development. When it is cleared, the first thing we do is give you an assessment. So you get your assessment to show how much you're going to pay if you confirm that. Before the assessment is being done, like I said, the charting will have been done. We go to site to do some inspections. Because sometimes you might come up, you said you want to build a house and you've already started construction, which is against the law. You must, first of all, take us to site, do the site inspection, confirm the site is okay, do the charting and confirm that the survey is as same as what is on site. Then we'll give you an assessment to go and make a particular payment to government. So the assessment is in phases two. We have the processing fee, we have the stage certification. Sometimes we have the IDC, and we have penal fee, depending on the situation we find on site. The IDC comes up if it's a commercial development or a particular development which is more than 8 units or above 4 floors. That's IDC. We call IDC infrastructural development contribution. That shows that that particular development is going to generate more of traffic, which the government must provide for. So mostly commercial, mostly uh, residential, more than 8 units or higher than 5 floors. So when that is done, then the penalty happens when we go to site. We find out that you've already started development, which should not have been. That means that you've committed an offense, which must be sanctioned. So that penalty is done, and that penalty could be worked based on your assessment times 4, depending on area situation. Like to now, anybody that has built his house that is done, maybe completed, will be penalized for that penalty, which brought in this new amnesty program that is ongoing, whereby if you have a building that is already built, completed, not under construction, that can actually enjoy that waiver of penalty, and it has a window of you know the expiration, which is still ongoing. I think you'll be hearing the jingles online and a lot of it on the paper. So, which is that then that's the process. After you've made that payment, that will give you the assessment. You bring back the receipt to us. If it's a company, you submit it with your CAC certificate and from CO4, CO7, which is the board of directors for their tax. Then you bring in the all the documents I mentioned earlier, the survey, your title documents, and your drawings. So with that, we open a file for you. And by the time we open that file for you, you have a registration number. That does not mean you have an approval yet, because it has to go through our own process within the house, where we will send it to the charging officer, from the charging officer to the head office, from the head office to the accounts, from the accounts to the tax office to check your tax, whether you're going to pay more tax or tax is okay. From there, it goes for concurrent clearance. Depending on the number of floors, if it's more than 2 floors, it goes to the head office in the Keja. It goes through the directors there and other processes. If it's more than 4 floors or above or 6 floors, it goes to the Ministry of Physical Planning. And if it's above maybe uh uh 10, 12, 11 high rise, that goes to the governor's office for concurrent approvals. So that's the process for planning.
So, are you saying that the buildings that are being demolished, they weren't given amnesty? Because you mentioned something about amnesty, a period duration of time for
Yeah,
people who will be given.
it
They
is.
weren't given, or
Amnesty.
they were given and did not and they
Now, now,
did not meet up.
now, any building that is demolished is not because it has built uh illegally. What mostly we do and onset is any building that is built illegally without permit will first of all serve some notices. No building that can be will be demolished in Lagos without being served a particular notice. Because we have conservation notice that okay, see, you started your development. Oh, please can you bring your documents to our office for verification? Do you have any? If it doesn't respond, they serve another one, seal up. They will first of all cordon it, they will mark it your the mark color. If that person didn't respond again, then they pass through a particular section whereby that is from that section that they will decide whether that building deserves to be demolished or not. And like you said some buildings are being demolished in Lagos State. No building is demolished in Lagos State that has proper documentation. One, two, mostly it is maybe due to the rain. We are having flood issues, and a lot of people are building on the rain, on the drainage system. That is why I said before you do your thing, you chat to know whether that building falls on the road or on a drainage canal. Any building that falls on a drainage canal is goes to the Ministry of Environment jurisdiction to take responsibility on that and do the right thing. We can't, because you have a building on the canal and you don't have an approval, somebody will have to wait for you, and the whole Lagos will be flooded. So the ministry will have to do their own due diligence on that, confirm what is going on. Is it blocking the drainage system? Then they take their own action. But that is domicile in the environment as regards. As regards to physical planning, any form of demolition that comes up in physical planning must go through a process too. Do we have a document? Does it override? Can that thing be condoned? If it can be condoned, okay, let him submit the document. That's where we come to this issue of this amnesty, whereby if you've built and your building is on the proper land and can be approved, then we approve it. If it cannot be approved, it goes through another channel that maybe you are building on the road or on the drainage system, then that means that it cannot be approved. So the issue of that the demolition has to have some things. Anybody who they demolish their own property without any letter or anything has a place to go to, let your complaint, and they will respond to them. If it's environment, they will tell you which ministry is responding for such actions, and they will do the needful.
All right, thank you so much. That was really, really insightful. Okay, so one more question before we round up. So, what advice would you give anyone or someone buying land to make sure that they build on it without issues? What advice
Okay.
can you give? And how do they stay updated, especially those who already have buildings? How do they stay updated, especially when it comes to zoning laws and building regulations?
Okay. Good. The advice I will give anybody who wants to buy land or wants to build in Lagos State is this: the first thing to do is, if anybody should take you over to a land that say they want to sell this land, take your own personal surveyor down there. Pick your coordinates yourself. Don't depend on whatever information they give to you. Pick your coordinates yourself. Take it to Surveyor General's office. They are the custodians of all land, the titles and documents in Lagos State as regards to land and their allocations. Take it there, do a charting information or a land information. You pay officially there. They issue you a letter that this land that you are talking about is acquired, is free, is this, is zoned for this, is belongs to this. The information will be given to you directly. Now, the moment you get that information, that's the first-hand information on that land, you will now be sure that there is no kind of government or any form of acquisition on that land. Then you cannot proceed to do any form of negotiation with whoever is selling to you. Okay. Now, by the time you do that, when it comes to money issues, the government does not concern about that. That means it's a family problem. But anything concerning allocation, acquisition, revocation, regulation, that letter will give you that insight. If you are okay with the information you got, then you now proceed to lands to perfect your documents. When you buy, they do your deed for you. They give you some paper. Go to lands, do your C of O or your governor consent with regards to documents that the family issued you. You pay all your necessary fee. You get your C of O or your governor consent or whatever consent or documents that lands will issue you. That will give you that ownership on that land. Then the moment you get that ownership of that land, that doesn't mean that you can actually build also. With that document and those documents I mentioned earlier, your drawings, your mechanical, your survey, your all those documents you need, you take it over to physical planning office, any of the office there. The head office is at the Keja. Go there, make inquiry. They will direct you to the zone that is required to do the needful. So those zones will do their own assignment on it and get you to the necessary district office for you to go and register your design for proper approval. And that does not also mean you can build after getting your approval number and what have you. It's until your process is complete and you get your approval that you can start building. And before you build, you have to go to LAPCA. That's our other agency to get certification to commence construction. then you can now move. Then from there, they will take over and start doing staging from your foundation to your first slab to your finish. There, they will now issue you a certificate of habitation so that you can now habit, and that will tell you that okay, it's now okay for habitation after your completion. So thank you.
Trust me, this is really educative. At least now we now know why most demolitions are happening in Lagos State.
Mm.
Before we move on to the next speaker, please, I would love to ask if you know you have question for Mr. Said. Please do well to drop it in the comments in the chat box as he would respond to you shortly. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. We're really grateful. You can see the
Um,
comments that they're really showing their appreciation. And I learned a lot. Yes, thank you. Thank you
you're
all so
welcome.
so much. So let's you're welcome, sir. So I'm going to be calling on engineer Jimo to come on board to give us uh you know what he has for us today. How you doing, sir?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm doing okay. How about you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. We just had an insightful one with Mr. Said. He gave us
Okay.
a download on what we need to do to obtain permits, building permits the right way.
Okay. My name is Engineer Jimo Abdulbasit. I'm a senior engineer in Federal Roads Maintenance Agency.
Okay, you're welcome on board. It's good to have you here. You're welcome on board. You
Thank
can
you.
thank you, Stanley. Thank you, Stanley. I can see you. I can hear you. That was Stanley. So thank you so much. All right. So let me just proceed with the questions. Okay. What is the most important thing to consider when choosing a location for a new house? Because we just have the permit aspect from engineer side. Now we're asking you what are the most important things to consider when choosing a location for a new house?
Uh, First and foremost, you have to ensure, like the first speaker already said, all requirement needed from the regulatory body should be up and doing, should be available. So you know that whenever you are going to a new place to build a place, you won't have issue with the regulatory agency, like you said, demolition and stuff that I mentioned earlier. So first and foremost, you should look for a place. If it's for residential, you have to get to know from the government that okay, is this area allocated for residential or commercial purposes? So because you don't go ahead to build a residential building where is designated for commercial purpose.
Can you explain the key steps in construction process from start to finish?
Okay. Like Mr. Said said, after getting all necessary permits from the government agency, then you know you are done with the government. You don't have any issue with them with respect to regulation. So next in line is after getting your architectural drawings approved and structural drawings approved, you go to site. Not that you go to site immediately. You ensure that the soil where you are going to be having your foundation is well tested. And the result you get from this soil, from the testing of the soil, will determine the kind of foundation you are going to be using. In this, you have to plan. You have to plan ahead before you even start construction. So from the plan, you have to know, okay, what are you planning for? Are you planning to do a two-story building, a three-story building, or whatnot? The resources that will be required, which is the people. Do you have enough personnel, like who have the capacity and capabilities to do whatever you require in the construction? You have to ensure that okay, your budget is right on point because that's one of the most important things. So because it is the money from the budget that you ensure you complete your structure. Then the equipment that will be needed, all these things are to be pre-planned before you even go to site. Then you also have to ensure that the season where you'll be doing the construction, it is not in the rainy season because during rainy season it stops or it hinders your progress on site. And also you have to schedule your job on site also. So there'll be period for the substructure, the superstructure, and the finishing of the project. So henceforth, when all this is done, you start implementing and executing the project. We start from laying the foundation. So from the foundation, you ensure that we have both the contractor or the consult both on site. So because the consultant is the one that is in charge of the structural drawing, so he has to be there to ensure that the contractor is complying with the agreed architectural and structural drawing. So after getting your foundations up, because from the soil test, you have to determine the kind of foundation you are doing. Either it's going to be pile, raft, foundation, strip, or pad, any of those foundations. So from there, you have to do your DPC, the dam proof course. Let me use the right term. So like what they call, what's the layman term? The layman term is a German floor, if you don't know what they call German floor, the dam proof course. So after that, you start your superstructure. So your foundation because it's the earth surface. So your superstructure starts from your dam proof course upward, where you have your sitting room, dining, where all dimensions have to be followed by the engineer on site, who is the contractor. So you have to ensure the quality of the concrete. Sometimes in the design, you will be given, it is presented to use a grade 30 concrete, whereas on site, some contractors might use less than that grade, which that's why you require a consultant to come on site once in a while to ensure that the contractor is actually complying with what is supposed to do. So from bringing your manpower, your equipment to site, you start your block work, you do your lintel. From your lintel, you do your, if it's a story building or a duplex, for example, you do your, what they call, this slab, you do your slab. After your slab, you go to the top floor. Then from there, you do your roofing. The slab has to actually conform with what is in the architectural and structural drawing, so as not to see the collapse of building in the future, because some of these things are not really taken serious. You see people indulge bricklayer or masons to help them construct buildings. So that's why it's advisable to employ specialists or experts in the field, like a registered engineer from Koren or NSC, who is a member of NSC also, so that you don't just bring any other person to your site and build rubbish, and in 2 3 years you start seeing cracks in your house, you see damping, some of those defects, damping of your walls, you see the sliding of soil also. So to avoid where building collapse in the future, you have to ensure that you bring in registered professionals. Then before you do your roofing, then finishing, and you hand over to the client.
All right, thank you. So the next question, please. We have some questions for you because I'm sure a lot of us here have questions regarding construction.
Yeah.
This construction aspect is the aspect where a lot of people do not have, they just have just surface knowledge. So in terms of that, we have to hire experts like you to give us insights on it. So we need you to tell us that what are this some of the common mistakes that people make when building houses, and how can they avoid them? Because you said something about collapse. Now we've had some occasions which are not very very sightful. You understand? It's really sad that we have some building collapse. So can you help us with some common mistakes that we can avoid when building a house?
Okay. For example, if in your structural drawing it is adopted or allowed for you to use a deep pile in the foundation, and the engineer, or let me not use engineer because I respect engineers that they are going to ensure whatever is in the structural drawing. So let's say a not a non-expert coming to your site, so he might not be able to understand some of those drawings. So instead of him interpreting it the way it is in the drawing, he's going to, maybe there's a power foundation in the drawing, he's going to adopt maybe a raft or a strip foundation. So sometimes when they do this, you understand that, and some of the load, because when you are designing your house, you have already calculated for the live and dead load. And your live load are people moving, those movable things in your house. Those are the live load. Then the dead loads are those immovable things like your TV, your wardrobe, your kitchen utensils and stuff like that. So some of those loads are already calculated. So if it is in the drawing that so and so foundation should be used, for example, a pile foundation where maybe the top surface is not bearable, is not good enough to hold heavy loads, and you want to build a wrapped foundation then. So in 2 years, 3 years, you just see your house sagging. I don't know, or you see the top soil sliding, but these are gradual effect that you might not see them. It's not something that's so visible, but you start seeing cracks on your walls, you see damping coming out. Then again, when you go to the top floor, I just talked about the foundation now. So when you are doing the slab, for example, now, so there's in the drawing, you might have a spacing of 150 mm or 200 mm. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. You see some people trying to minimize materials instead of spacing their reinforcement 50 mm. You see them doing 300 just to minimize material. Because when you have casted it, nobody will see those reinforcements anymore after casting. So it's better when you have the consultant also, it has to be them when they want to cast to ensure that, okay, this contractor is actually complying with this. So if those spaces are not in accordance with what is in the design, which was calculated, just imagine you've calculated 150 mm spacing to carry so amount of load, and you are now spacing it in 250, 300. So just maybe the load is supposed to carry like 10 tons, and you have a spacing of 300 already. So you will notice that when that load carries 10 tons, you will have collapse. You have collapse. And this starting from the foundation to the slab and upward like that.
So before we allow you go, because we have other guests that that needs to share insight with us. I need you to also
Okay.
answer these questions. How can home buyers or homeowners, right, ensure that the materials they are using in construction are of good quality? Sometimes we don't know these things. Someone like a normal regular home buyer, someone that just wants to build a bungalow, it will be like, let me just buy. How do we know? What are those things? Or how do they ensure that the materials they are buying is of good quality? Please, can you help us, sir?
Okay. That's why I said something about the soil test initially. So when you do a soil test, it's going to determine your foundation, type of foundation. So now like you said, the question you're now asking is the reinforcement that is required for some of those columns. They are produced in bars like 12 mm, 16 mm, 20 mm, and stuff like that. So because there was this project I supervised recently, and no, there's a training I did at Nigerian Building and Road Research Institute recently. So we found out that some of these, I don't want to call the company's name, that make reinforcements in Nigeria, some of their reinforcements are not actually up to the tonnage of load that they can carry. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. So some of these things, me and you on the street, like a layman on the street, will not even know. So that's why we have to ensure that some of the companies, like our SON, have to ensure these guys are actually producing the kind of materials that is really needed. And reinforcement is something that's so important in construction. Reinforcement is something that's so
Sorry,
important in
sorry
construction.
to sorry to comment, sir. So this is a very,
Okay.
very sensitive question. I believe there are other people who are here. What are those things that we can note to say, oh, this material is not good, though? Or maybe you
Okay.
can give an instance, or
No,
it could be
okay.
the cement, it could be the rods, I
No,
don't know. But what are those things, key indicators to note? Yeah.
okay. Majorly, some of those materials are good. It is when you are on site. So it is when you are on site. For example, if you are supposed to use grade 30 concrete, I don't know if you get what I'm saying. So grade 30 concrete, this is how you mix. This is your mixed ratio between your sand, cement, and granite. So if these things are not sand to granite to cement is actually in compliance is what is in the design. Because some of these materials they don't really mean much alone. It is when you are combining them together that you have to ensure that they are of standard. Like I mentioned, concrete, for example, the mixed ratio of concrete has to be adhered to. Where you're supposed to use
Okay.
like grade 30, you are using grade 20. Some of those things are going to affect your building in the long term.
So you mean grade 20 or grade 30 in terms of color or in terms of material quantity?
No, this is the mixed ratio of your concrete. And concrete is one
Okay.
major
Okay.
material in construction. So your mixed ratio, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Another question from Mr. James Udyong, and he says that what is the minimum distance one can build from the canal area in Lagos to avoid demolition? So this question is very important because you remember you spoke about houses that are in the drainage area, that's the canal area. So what's the minimum distance one can build from the canal area in Lagos to avoid demolition? Thank you, sir.
If, drainage system or waterways within Lagos have sizes. We have the stream, we have the lake, we have the normal canal within residential areas, and some canal links to the main waterways for it to move up. Now, the one within the residential areas or those, we call them small canals, as their setbacks. The minimum setbacks for them is 3 meters. That's all those natural ones. Now, the natural, the one that's been maybe concreted, maybe has a slab fragment. Those 1 10 meters on both sides. So 10 meters from this, then 10 meters from the other side. But if it's not concreted and it's still natural, you leave 15 on both sides. But I think the government are trying to look for a way, maybe they can do 5 meters, but according to the law, is 15 meters on both sides. If it's not concreted, if it's concreted, it's 10 meters. But maybe over time they'll come up with something lesser than because of the rate of development within Lagos State. But on note that whenever you are building a building beside your canal, you must have nothing less than 15 meters to a canal, which is not slapped. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Mr. Usahi. Thank you. Oh, we still have some more questions. We still have some more questions,
Okay.
and I think that's the last one we'll be taking before we end this panelist session. And it says from Annie, Mr. Annie, and he says, Mr. Sai, can one get a building? Can one get a permit to build, awaiting the final approval of the building? Is it allowed? Can one do that?
No, there is nothing called permit to build awaiting final approvals. The law says when you made your payments and you made your submission for approval, until the process is complete before you can develop. So the whole thing is either the process is being speed up before you build. There is no law that says you can build before approval.
Thank you so much once again, Engineer Jimo and Mr. Latif. Beautiful session. So coming up next is we have our group CEO in our midst, Mr. Rana Ijaz rather. So welcome on board. We're glad to have you in our midst. And I'm sure a lot of persons have some questions to ask you, but we just want to ask you a few questions. We've heard a lot in this evening, and we just want to for you to just put the icing on the cake. All right. Just a few questions. So let me ask this first question. Okay, so the first question is, how does property inflation impact real estate investors? Because in this
Yeah,
court, how does property, yes, how does it impact real estate investors? Because most of us here are potential investors. Please, can you just share insights on that? Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you, Blessing. Wonderful question, actually. Just for the people who don't maybe seeing me first time, my name is Rana Ijaz. I'm Group CEO for Gtext Holding. I'm joining you from Dubai. So my background is real estate and investment banking. So the question is very relevant into the Nigerian situation, Blessing, right now. Because we are facing a huge wave of inflation, naira dollar situation. So I have seen dollar has been depreciating over time. I remember when I was in September in Lagos, I think $1 was about 1,000 naira, and I think now it's a 1,500 plus. Uh, so that's a very scary situation. And what happens? What inflation does? Of course, property prices goes up eventually. All the developers, they have to, especially the people who are into the construction sector like us, you guys are building homes. So what happens when the inflation goes up? All our input costs, they definitely go up, because we have to import a lot of materials, like steel, cement, if and sanitary items, marble. So a lot of input costs in the structures, they go up, and it becomes very expensive for the customers eventually. So it does affect investors in many ways. They hold back their investment decisions. I have seen a lot of people, if they were willing to buy a house, they will just go and sit back they will sit in the shell. But eventually it affects them more negatively, because in the times of inflation, the worst thing to keep with you is the cash. If you are keeping your money in the bank or a fixed deposit, and a country like Nigeria, where the inflation is hitting high and losing value against dollars, it's the worst kind of investment. So I would advise every single person, even the inflation is there in the market, don't keep your money in the cash. Diversify your portfolio. So the best thing would be, even you can even it's not encouraged. You can buy some dollars at least to hedge something. Buy some gold, to have something, because these prices will go up. But in the real estate sector, the people, it is again, if it is better to buy in the off plan property, lock your prices. You don't pay one time, but at least if you are paying over 3 years period or 5 years period, it's still much better in today's price. Make some down payment and lock the prices today, because in future, I bet you it's not going to go down. Because what happens, inflation is up, and if you go for the bank financing, the interest rates going to be very high, so it becomes less attractive becomes very expensive for the investors to borrow money for the mortgages and buying houses. And typically, if you see it's not only in Nigeria, even in the US, interest rates are high. That's why real estate industry is becoming very difficult to buy homes, and people are expecting it's going to go down. So there is no perfect answer to this. Still, diversify. Don't delay your decision. Don't keep your savings in cash. This is my best advice to you guys.
Okay, thank you so much. In case you're just joining us, that was Mr. Rana, our group CEO. He just gave us an advice on how does property inflation impact your real estate investment, right? For especially for those who are interested in investing in real estate, especially first home buyers. Okay, so sir, one last question before you leave us. What are the strategies? What strategies can investors use to protect their investment during times of inflation?
Yeah, I think it's a very relevant question to our earlier discussion. In the times of inflation, the best thing is to diversify your investments. Don't keep your all eggs in one basket, because it's gonna, if some people, especially poor strata or middle income level, they tend to put their money in the fixed deposit, so they have monthly incomes, to have they live on that kind of monthly income. So, but when the inflations are high, don't put all your money in the banks. Don't put fixed deposits. Diversify. Have something in the bank if you have to be. Have a small apartment. Put in the rental income, so that real estate, have investment in the income generating assets like typical small houses, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom apartments. So that's still a wise idea. During the times of inflation, you can still lock your investments, and that will generate your income. And that income will also be translated into higher inflation. You will get more rentals in the coming months or years. So diversify. And another way of securing your investment, have something which in it is a foreign currency. For example, in the Gtext, we have projects in US as well. This is one of the reasons we went to US, particularly Nigerian diaspora. So they have the opportunity to save their money and invest in the US dollar rather than having in Nigerian, which is ever depreciating at the fast pace. So, so my advice would be, keep the cash minimum with you in the times of inflation. Diversify. Have smart real estate investments. Invest into the off plan properties where you pay less but you lock the future prices, and have something outside Nigeria if you can afford to.
Okay, as simple as it is. Thank you so much, sir. Said you should diversify your investment. You should have investments here in Nigeria. You should have also in diaspora, and also you should also have little amount of money saved in your bank account. Thank you so much, sir. That was really insightful. So if you have any question for Mr. Rana, he's here with us. A privilege to have him here. And trust me, it's not easy to get a pool of experts in one place at this time. So take advantage of this and ask your questions now. I know some of us are we have questions that we need to ask. We need clarity. Before you leave us, Mr. Rana, one last word for us. Is there anything you want to say? One last word for us before you leave us.
Yes, Blessing. So it's wonderful. I heard the wonderful discussion uh, earlier from the panelists. What are the most important factors, in choosing a location and the legal requirements? Uh, so if there is any question in that domain, I would be happy to answer, or any other aspect.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
I think Mr. Farouk has just
Okay.
joined us. He was in another call along with
Just
me.
joined us. Yeah.
We welcome you, Mr. Farouk.
Welcome on board. Welcome on board, sir.
Yeah, fantastic. Good day, everyone. Fantastic to be here. I apologize for joining late. I unavoidably had another event, so I hope you had a fantastic time. And I've been hearing you from the background. It's been fantastic. And we're just here to just project and let people know what are the things they need to know before getting into investments, whether it's investments in Nigeria, whether it's investments in the US, and for you to understand the different building practices all over the world. Is it in Nigeria? Is it in Lagos? Is it in Abuja? Because the common myth that people have is that if they build in particularly Lagos, they will demolish their houses, right? In some cases, some people will say Igbos are not allowed to build. Some people will say all the land they are selling in Lagos is fake. Some people also ask, my land is too small to build. So I hope we've been given quite an insightful ways for you to know how to manage your land. What can you build on a 300 square meter? What can you build on a 400 square meter? If you have 800 square meter, what can I build? Right? And this understanding how to maximize land is quite important for people that are into real estate investments. For us, whenever we get a new property, one of the first questions is, how do we improve the value of that property? I will call that created environment. Do we put in a golf resort? Do we need to put in a lake? Do we need to build monumental species? Do we need to put in a museum? How do we attract people into this area just to increase the value of this real estate? And for real estate investors like you, for some of you that have already bought land, especially those of you that are in diaspora that bought land in Lagos that maybe want to build a house, you have to start thinking, how do I turn my current investment into a money-making machine? What do I build on a 400 square meter that can give me good rental income? If I'm using it for residential, how can I build a very fantastic masterpiece that I will love in terms of my housing? And Gtexthomes is providing you with this solution. So if you're a client here and you're thinking of how you want to build, we can help you actually build properties just by leveraging on technology, just by giving fantastic building plans just for it. I'm sure Mr. Rana has given us a fantastic way of how we can diversify our income, particularly all around the world. And I'm sure we had some fantastic speakers, knowledge experts give us their wealth of knowledge. I've seen Mr. Latif come in. I've seen Mr. Jimo also come in. Right. So I hope we had a fantastic time. So Blessing, do you have any questions for me? So we can just dive right into it and we can wrap up.
Yeah, yeah, well, Mr. Farouk, just one thing I would like to add. You, especially building houses, uh, zoning is very critical. Sometime it's typical mistakes, especially in the big cities like Lagos and back home Karachi in Pakistan. A lot of people they are tricked into buying something which is not really a residential zone, and eventually they end up losing their investments because if the government comes in with their projects like in other is a road is a big highway is passing by and that has to pass through the same plots, they get paid but eventually not at the rates. So zoning is very important. And secondly, the best advice I would say the people who are on the call, if you work with the credible people, even you are buying a piece of plot, work with, if you are buying from a real estate agent or broker, work with someone who has a credibility because you will not get cheated. If you are buying an off-plan construction home, work with a credible developer who will deliver, who will protect your investments from all these angles, permits, regulatory compliance, and all this stuff. So this is a very key aspect when buying or building houses. Thank you, sir.
All right. Welcome once again, Mr. Farouk. Thank you for the insights you shared to us. I would like to ask you a few questions. You just mentioned something now, and I don't think we mentioned that to Engineer Jimo about the what we can build on a 400 square meter, and I think we'll have to call him again. I pray he's still with us. Let's call him again so that he can give us that part. What kind of houses we can build in a 400 square meter, 300. Thank you for bringing that to us. But before we call him back, I have some questions for you. Uh, so my questions are basically on foreign properties because Mr. Rana advised us to diversify our real estate investment options, right? So I'm going to be asking you, what are the processes of getting properties in the US? Can you share with us? Because I'm sure a lot of us need to know.
Well, particularly when buying properties in the US, is not the same as getting property in Nigeria. And for us, at the moment, we're expanding heavily into the US. And the reason why we got into this is quite simple. We realized that we have to find other ways to diversify our portfolio. People always complain, investing in Nigeria, the inflation is going high. We understand the value of the Nigerian currency. Why don't we invest in countries whereby we know that the currency is higher, right? And for example, if you build a multi-million dollar investment in the US, we can break back that same amount, that fund, and bring it back into the Nigerian context and actually fund most of our green and smart homes. And that's a fantastic concept we're having. And for customers that want to actually co-invest with us or acquire properties from us, the process is not very long. It's quite simple. So, for example, if you're buying a land from us in the US, the first thing we need to do is basically get permits for that land, get into zoning for that land, ensuring Mr. Rana spoke about zoning in the Nigerian context. It's almost the same thing in the US. There are some land that are set aside for residential. There are some land that are set aside for some mixed use. And while we acquire that, you cannot acquire for us from us. And once that comes into, after a period of time, we're going to give you a title deed in your name. Unlike Nigeria, whereby you focus on C of O and things like that, over there in the US, what is important for you is to have a title deed in your own name. And the title deed is done by the various counties. So, for example, you buy a land in Georgia, and after the handover process has been done, for example, there's documentation that has been shared, there's a proof that transaction has gone between two parties. The next thing is to register that land in your own name in the county you bought that property. It's called a title deed. So, for example, you buy a land from Gtex. Of course, that land must have gone past through what we call platting. Platting is almost the same thing as a survey, a registered survey. So the county whereby you buy that land from has to recognize that whatever is in that land for, they have to approve the layouts, the infrastructure that is drawn, and then you can now get your title deed for that land. Right. So that's the process. You buy land, exchange money. There should be a document and an agreement that backs in some cases, a contract of sale. In some cases, you may require to get in some funding for that land. In some cases, it's a mortgage on some sort. After that has been concluded, you can now get a title deed in your name, which you can get in the county or the country, wherever you buy that property from. So that's the process of acquiring property in the US. And you can apply that same process when you actually buy from us.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, sir. Another question we would like to ask you is what's the difference between building in the US and in Nigeria? What's the difference?
Well, in Nigeria, it's quite very similar, just that approval processes take a longer time. So let me show you something. This is an approval for a property that we recently acquired in the US. And in the US, when you get a new property, the first thing, like I said, they must go through a platting process. So a platting process whereby you do your design, your layout, this is where your road network is going to pass through. This is where the sewage will pass through. This is where water will pass through. These are the entrances that needs to be done. The first process is that has to be approved by the county. And this is a copy of an approved one that we've had in the US to build about 78 homes. And this is in a property in Richmond, which we are currently putting on the market for pre-launch. We are launching the market in January. This is about 78 homes, and this is an approved layout of what is going to go across. As you can see, instead of plots, they call it lots, right? And they've been subdivided into 78 lots. So the first approval process has to be for the 78 lots that you are doing there. We call this horizontal platting approval. Once that is done, right? And this takes a process of almost 6 months for you to get this. In Nigeria, you can get your approval in a few weeks. I'm sure it basically explains to it. And in an organized country like this, it takes longer time. You have to first look out for, okay, what are the things that we need to look out for? Is there any master plan in that area? How do you handle flooding? How do you handle drainage? There's another property we are working on the platting at the moment, and they need to tell us that for areas like this, you have to focus on the fact that you have to have a pond so that water and flooding does not come into place. So the first process is get a full platting approval for the horizontal. That's basically for the infrastructure that needs to be done. The second process is now to have a building approval for what you build on that land. Remember, the first part is to get an approval for the for the infrastructure and the amount of plots you can have in an estate. The second approval is now an approval that comes for the plot that you're going to have yourself. That's for your own building lots. So they are building on 3,000 square feet, on 5,000 square feet. You now have to have a building approval for what you are going to build. That alone can take another 3 to 6 months. That's why they are never in a hurry to build in the US. In Nigeria, you can get a property, get a building approval, and start building in 1 month. But in the US, you can wait almost 1 year before you can build your property. In the UK, it's even much worse. In the UK, you can take as much as 4 years to get a building permit to even build a house. And that's why most of the time in the UK, people focus on what we call fix and flip, whereby they get a property, they renovate it, because there's already an approval for that. They renovate it and they resell. Also, for people in the US that want to quickly flip their cash, they actually focus on maybe getting another property fix and flip, because they can get as much as a year before they can get approval on a virgin land. And that's why for people that want to do that, it's better to go into large scale. maybe you get into mini estates whereby you just buy about an acre and above because you have the luxury of time to wait. And the beautiful thing is that the value of that property increases. So before the platinum of an approval, let's say a property is worth $150,000 for an acre before approval. Once you get the first platin, that property can go as high as 300 to 350,000 because you've had a platin approval to build or to subdivide those plots. And when that is now done, you now have another approval to build. That already increases the value. And that's why you can sell the property between 300,000 to 400,000 in low density areas, while in higher density, you can sell as much as 500,000 to $1 million on just a property. So that's how building approval basically works in the US, and that's how different it is from that in Nigeria. I can also just share a few things that we need to look out for, basically. Another thing you can also do in terms of people that are going into real estate in the US is also to look out for mortgage opportunities that are available. And for those of us that are buying property from Nigeria, so for example, if you are buying the land in the US or in a property in the US, it might be difficult for you to register your title deed. For in cases like that, where all transaction has been concluded, you can actually get your title deed registered from the Nigerian embassy, for the US embassy in Nigeria. So for that, they will send, because you need to sign those things in physical. You cannot sign it over the internet. You cannot get a title deed by signing offline. You have to do that. Sorry, online. That has to be done in person. So in cases like that, arrangements can be taken to send your document to you in the embassy. You go there, you sign it, and then you get your title deed. And for those of you that may ask how much that can cost, to get a title deed in the US, it's going to cost between $500 to $1,000. It's actually quite cheaper. It's not very expensive to get a title deed. You get a property of about $300,000, you can spend as little as 500 to one, sending it down to the US embassy in Nigeria. It can take about 1,500 in total, about $2,000 just to get those things registered over to your name over there. So we are thinking about acquiring property in the US, particularly to us from Gtexthomes in the US. These are the things you also need to do to get into those spaces. So what can you build on a 400 square meter land? You can actually build anything on a 400 square meter land. You can build a fully detached duplex. You can build a 5-bedroom fully detached duplex. You can build a 4-bedroom fully detached duplex. Depends on how many floors you want to go. You can go 2 floors, 3 floors, 4 floors. In fact, it will shock you that most people actually build on 300 square meter in Lagos. Many of the houses are being built, especially in areas that are like Ogba, areas like even in Lekki, a lot of land, most of the land that houses that are even building right now in what do you call this place? Osaka, London, Lekki, Ajah, they're actually built on 250 square meter. And they call it luxury, they call it mansion. It comes with maybe 1 or 2 parking space on 250 square meter land. You see a 4-bedroom fully detached duplex, a 3-bedroom fully detached duplex, a 5-bedroom. On a 400 square meter, you can build so much more. You can even build a block of flats on a 400 square meter. Depends on how many floors you are willing to go. And if you are looking for good architectural designs, just to match up to that, you can reach out to our team. We have our competent construction team that can give you architectural designs on what you can build on a 400 square meter. So there's no limit to what you can do on a 400 square meter. You can do 4-bedroom, you can do block of flats, you can do eight flats if you are willing to go higher. You can do 6 flats, you can do so much more. In some cases, you can even decide to use the first floor, right, the ground floor for parking. And you can have up to 8 different parking spaces in that, and you can go higher. So there's no limit to what you can do with your land. What you need to do is, first of all, what's your intention? What do you want to actually achieve with that property? Do you want to have residential? Do you want to have commercial? Do you want to actually build houses that people will rent from you? And how many units are you willing to build? And from that, you need to do. In some cases, 400 may not be enough. You need to get more, maybe 800. That's in case you want to build like terrace duplexes. You want to build about 3 units, 4 units. You can actually build 4 units on a 600 square meter, right? You can build 3 units on a 600 square meter if you maximize the space very well. So there's no limit to what you can do on a 400 square meter. So I hope I've been able to answer your question, Mr. Adams Demilade. Okay, so Mr. Jimo, do you have any final words for us before we have our next final person come up?
Nothing really much to say aside like what I already said during the construction project that registered engineers should be indulged in constructing your homes, not just or you like Gtext is we have that have they are professionals. So you don't just go out and look for missing people that are not qualified to build apartment. So to avoid house collapse, building collapse in the future, and so other defects in your houses. So like GTEx who that have professionals in-house, they can be patronized.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Jimo. As we wrap up, I just want to talk about the fact that we're also willing to build for every one of you that have your properties already bought with GTEx, and we're willing to give as high as 1 million naira worth of building materials to start up your project. And the reason why we're saying this is to encourage some of you to build. So if you need professional consultancy on what you can do to maximize your property, you can do that. We're willing to offer that. We're also willing to extend building plans to you, architectural designs. And if you wish to bring in your contractor, that's fine. And we can also help you to also manage your building construction process, just to focus on quality assurance to ensure everything is well done according to the book. Your contractor does not cut corners. If you're willing to use our contractors, our independent contractors, we have them at large. And the beautiful part is that we can hold them accountable, right? Unlike especially with people that are in diaspora, we can basically help you manage your own projects. And you have other projects apart from the ones you have with us, maybe in some other parts of Lagos, in Abuja, in Port Harcourt, in some of the locations that we have our offices, we can also help you to oversee those projects. And if you need us to help you with some building plans, architectural designs, we also extend those services for you. And finally, if you're interested in getting some of our housing projects, we're selling housing projects in Lagos and in Abuja. We have a fantastic offer for you today. Let me see if I can just project that for you. So we have a fantastic offer for you today, whereby you can get a 4-bedroom and a 5-bedroom terrace duplex from us here in Jasper, Ibejuleki. And because of this webinar, we're willing to do a 10 million naira discount for a 4-bedroom terrace duplex and a 15 million naira discount for a 5-bedroom terrace duplex. Remember, this offer only lasts for 24 hours. And the beautiful part is that you can do a minimum deposit of 20 million for a 4-bedroom and a minimum deposit of 30 million for a 5-bedroom. And only for 24 hours only, we can extend this offer for as much as 18 months, meaning you can pay during an 18-month spread without an additional cost. So I encourage you to take advantage of this offer because this offer is going to be only for 24 hours. And to reach out to this offer, you can just reach out to the phone number. I'm going to type the number here. +234 701 408 7669, or you can reach out to +234 809999 4807. So you can reach out to those phone numbers. Let me call it again: +234 701 408 7669, or +234 809999 4807. So you have any inquiries regarding your properties, any inquiries regarding buying a house from us, inquiries regarding us building for you, you can reach out to those phone numbers, and then we're ready to do business with you. And before we wrap up, I think Mr. James has 1 or 2 words, and then we can basically wrap up. Mr. James, are you with us?
Okay. Okay, very quickly, I want to use this medium to thank every one of us who have, made our time to join us for this session. And I want to believe it's been insightful. If you know it's been insightful, please help us type on the comment section. If you're watching us, if you're joining on Zoom, and if you're joining on Facebook or YouTube, type on the comment section that yes, you got value. And our amazing guests, from Mr. Rana to Mr. Zahid and Mr. Chimo, who has given so much insight to how to navigate the real estate market, precisely in Nigeria and in the US and of course in Dubai. We want to thank you for this session, and we look forward to having this as an annual, as a monthly, program where you have opportunity to be exposed to lots of trainings. And to you, our existing clients who found time to also, honor our invitation and come here, we want to say thank you. And we look forward to even doing more business with us. As you can see at Gtexthomes, we're very big on training. We're very big on exposing you to how best you can make good use of your investment with us at Gtex. And for you, our potential investor and also our marketers, referrals, we want to thank you. It's been amazing having you to the end of this. And again, reach out to, for further inquiries where you want us to help you build, and even advance your real estate investment. Reach out to those numbers. Until next time, we want to say, you don't wait to buy property, you buy property and wait. Till next time, till we see you again. Have a great day. See you next month.